Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going. As I like to remind you each and every day, it expands our base. There is so much in the news this morning. I want to try to cover as much as I can in the brief time that we have together. First of all, the question of damage done in the American and Israeli action hitting the nuclear facilities in Iran. There is some debate about how much damage was done, and we are going to find that out because there will be a thorough investigation, not only by the United States, but by the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is charged with figuring out what's going on. I don't know who is right or wrong, but I do know that something happened yesterday that did disturb me. Let's begin from the premise that the Israelis and the President of the United States deserve great credit for removing the nuclear threat that Iran posed. Let's hope that they have either destroyed or set back that nuclear effort on the part of the Iranian mullahs. As long as Iran is ruled by religious fanatics who are determined to destroy Israel and who refer to the United States as the big Satan and the Israelis as the little Satan, well, we know we've got a problem, right? Okay. But there is an issue within the United States itself over constitutional authority. I have made clear in previous podcasts, and I want to do so again today, that the president does have the authority to take these kinds of actions. We have not had a declaration of war in this country since December of 1941, when the United States declared war on Germany. All of our other actions, whether it was in Korea or Vietnam, or, well, you can list all the places that the president has dispatched troops to, has been done on presidential authority. And the simple fact is that unless Congress passes legislation, and that legislation is signed into law by the president did not exceed his authority. Any president, Democrat or Republican, has the power to do what needs to be done. That includes, by the way, when Osama bin Laden was taken and killed by the United States. It is important to note that there are those who say we should limit presidential power. Let them go to the Congress. I am often reminded, and I've discussed with you in the past, an interview I did with the late Senator Thomas Eagleton, often remembered as George McGovern's ill-fated Democratic nominee for vice president in 1972. But Tom Eagleton should really be remembered because he was the author of the original War Powers Act. That's what he did. And in the end, in an interview I did with Senator Eagleton some years ago, he explained to me why in the end he voted against the War Powers Act. He said that that act, as constructed, gave the president more power, not less power. And if you read the War Powers Act, that's precisely correct. Senator Jacob K. Javits, who I also interviewed on this subject, and who wrote a book dealing with this subject, essentially came to the same conclusion. There was, and there should be, a clear definition of purpose. The purpose of presidential authority is to take action. And whether you agree or disagree with the action, those are the simple facts. Those in the Democratic Party who are raising questions about a president's authority to act should go back and think about when Barack Obama gave the order to take out Osama bin Laden. It is vital that we also understand another aspect of this, and that is that there should be consultation by the Congress with the executive branch in order to determine action. It doesn't mean that Congress has a right to interfere, but they should be notified. What was stunning to me is that the notification of Congress was delayed. And in fact, we now know that the president only briefed Republicans, not Democrats. This, to me, is a mistake in strategy. The Republicans and Democrats have to work together on issues like this. And the fact that this briefing on what happened is being postponed, well, it'll take place at least a week after the action, says a lot to me about the limits that should be applied to presidential authority. Now, let me be clear about that. A president who would have consulted with Democrats and Republicans would not be in the position of having his ability threatened. The mistake is not on the part of the Congress. The mistake is on the part of this administration. There is no trust between the White House and the Democrats, and evidently, although they trust Republicans, only to a degree. This goes back to the fundamental question of presidential authority. How far can a president go? Well, virtually as far as a president wants to, as the chief executive. But it is important to note as well that although there are no current constraints, real constraints, on the commander-in-chief role of the presidency, these issues that I have just raised with you should raise all kinds of red flags. We are not a monarchy. We are not a dictatorship. We are a nation built on a fundamental concept of balance of power, and that, my friends, involves trust. It is clear that the Trump administration does not trust the Congress. Of course, it's also true the Congress doesn't trust the president. But we sure as heck better resolve this issue in terms of the authority a president has. I want to make a quick comment, although we'll talk more about it in another podcast, on what happened in New York City, where the Democratic establishment was defeated dramatically with the defeat of Andrew Cuomo, the former governor of New York, by an upstart New York City assemblyman who is a self-proclaimed socialist and anti-Zionist. There is no doubt that the ramifications for the Democratic Party are going to be real, and we're going to be watching what happened and what will happen in the New York race for governor. Oh, did I say governor? That's because Mario Cuomo is gone, and his son was just defeated in a race. And do you understand the confusion? Was it Mario? Was it Andrew? Was there really an upset? And what did the upset mean? I am trying to convey to you in these few words the confusion that I think was felt by many New York voters. Oh, I forgot the most confusing aspect, ranked choice voting. Those of you who followed me for a while know I opposed ranked choice voting. Always have, always will. I believe it defeats democracy. But you know something? That's what New Yorkers have, and it appears that the Democratic establishment has been defeated. So, despite the confusion, the names, the attitudes, the politics, we're going to be in for a fascinating run when it comes to the state of New York and the city of New York and the role of the New York Democratic Party. Oh, one other quick note. I want to remind you that OAC and Bernie Sanders endorsed the assemblyman who won. That is an indication, my friends, of a real shift in New York Democratic politics. Oh, wait, does that mean AOC might run for the United States Senate, for the Democratic nomination for the United States Senate next year? Well, that's another wide open issue, and Chuck Schumer is the one who should be really thinking about the implications. Well, I know this has been all too brief, and there's a lot to talk about, but thank heaven we have tomorrow. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am John Rothman. Make sure to follow along and let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand, which is, of course, our goal. You can interact with me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and, of course, directly emailing. And my special appreciation, of course, to Gogo Zoger, who puts this podcast out every single day. I am John Rothman. I will be back tomorrow, and heaven only knows where the world will be, with another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. See you then.